I thought I had an opening bit, but I couldn't come up with a pun for X-Men 2. So, hi everybody, welcome to X-Men: Too Many Mutants.
X-Men 2, the one with the stupid ass subtitle. That's what I call this one.
X-Men United. I mean,
I hate that subtitle.
I'm not bothered by that. I'm bothered by the fact that, like, when you look it up, it's actually titled X-2.
Everyone called it X-2. Why do we need X-Men United? We know it's an X-Men movie.
Mm-hmm. Just call it X-Men 2, and like I don't. Yeah, it's really dumb.
I mean, it could be worse. It could be Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow.
Right.
Whatever
that was bad.
Yeah. Whatever.
Well, they didn't just call it. They didn't call it TMNT Secret of the Use. Yeah. They call it Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then Secret of the Use.
I believe they called it TMNT.
If that's how you have to type it into Google, then those people
TMNT was the CGI one with Nolan North.
Yeah, that was the official TMNT. Yeah, that was
Nolan North. Do you know what the official Japanese title of the book Edge of Tomorrow is based on is?
Isn't it just All You Need Is Kill?
All You Need Is Kill.
Which sounds like a parody Bond film.
Hell yeah!
Yep.
All we can say is Paul McCartney decided to write a fucked up Beatles movie.
Yeah.
All you need is kill, brother.
Imagine my pocket, and that hole is a death.
Yeah, it's like the. Yeah.
Go ahead. Anyway,
I was gonna make a joke about River Song, but I've done that before, so that's fine.
So anyway, we have a bit of a packed house tonight. So I'm here, Conor McGraw. Who else is here?
Arlen Haro.
Hunter Davenport, also more like X-Men Poo United.
Oh my god!
Okay.
How dare you?
Okay, Hunter, you're fired. I'm giving you your resignation forms. You are no longer a consummate professional.
Hell yeah!
I'm John Scott. I'm the hired help. I'm continuing that joke from last week, and no one can stop me.
Yeah.
I'm Lou Gonzalez, and I know a little girl that can walk through walls.
And I'm John Seiler. I'm what happens when a toad is struck by lightning.
Oh, God. That was not that again.
You have no idea how appropriate that intro actually was.
Well, at least the good news is she dropped the accent.
Well, it's funny because we spent a good probably 20 odd minutes scattered throughout just dissecting that line and how stupid it is.
Yeah, real dumb.
Do we? I'm trying to think. Do we have one in this movie? Because there's a few.
I wouldn't say there are lines that are. There are some visuals that are very goofy.
Yeah, and the one that always stuck out to me was when it's the delivery. It's when Colossus is like, "I can help you," and then Wolverine's like, "Help them," and that's it.
Yeah,
that's the entire thing.
It's a good line. It's just delivered terribly.
Oh,
So now we did X-Men 1 last week. Now we're doing X-2, X-Men United from 2003, directed by Bryan Singer again. Still written by David Hayter and Zach Penn. And then we're going to roll down the cast. We're not going to spend a lot of time with the people who are returning because if you listen to last week's episode...
We forgot one writer. We forgot Michael Dougherty. If you guys don't know him, he's the guy who wrote and directed Krampus and the upcoming Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Whoa!
Oh, shit. Oh. Yeah.
Also Superman Returns, so take that with and Trick or Treat.
Oh, that's a good movie.
Yeah, this is a great film.
So pretty much everyone from the first film came back. Am I wrong in that department?
I don't think.
I don't think you're wrong. I think the majority of the cast minus Toad, who got zapped out of the
right. Yeah, he had to go off and not be Darth Maul ever again.
And Tyler Mane, who's doing God knows what.
Yeah,
I think Tyler Mane has a real promising career somewhere.
Isn't Tyler Mane doing Troy right now? Actually,
yeah, probably.
Actually, you know what? I think you're correct.
Like a pizza.
Troy, written by David Benioff, everybody's favorite person at this exact moment in time when we're recording it.
Oh God!
He's really endeared himself to people.
The only casting changes are the ancillary characters and one character that gets a bump up. They recast.
Yeah. So Tyler Mane was probably filming Troy because Troy came out in 2004. So
that makes sense.
Blammo. So we have a bunch of new mutants to talk about. I will go right down the list and try to find them.
Before we start, I want to get one thing going. Halle Berry was supposed to be Jennifer Lopez in Geely, but she dropped out to do this movie.
Oh,
who died? What bullet?
Yes, what a bullet indeed. Anyway,
yeah.
So I'm going to start with our first new character, and that is it's a big one. It's Brian Cox as William Stryker.
AKA the best part of this whole movie.
So is this the best version of Stryker, or do we prefer the dude from Mad Max, or do we prefer what's his face from
Danny Houston?
Yes,
Danny
from
Houston
30 Days and Nights.
No,
Yeah, I think for me, this is the best version because they give him room. They give him so much backstory. You get exactly why he's who he is, and it's Brian Cox. So
Brian Cox.
I think
Brian
Danny
Cox
Houston had wasted
like no one's
potential.
business.
What was that, John?
Yeah.
I said it was.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It's I said it was Brian Cox chewing scenery like no one's business.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's pretty excellent at that. And Seiler, I'm sorry, did you have something to say too?
Oh, and also he just kind of represents I think are the best kind of X-Men villains, where they're the super racist, prejudiced X-Men villains.
You mean like the Michael Pence looking, white-haired, very very obviously just transparently vicious psychopath who has no qualms about hurting people.
My favorite part is that he's wearing a Steve Jobs shirt.
Yeah, and so I think it works. If you try to analyze how he looks throughout this fucking convoluted timeline, it's certainly very confusing because
it is.
He goes from Danny Houston to Brian Cox allegedly. It's like, what the fuck happened to you?
Well, in the middle, you go to that one guy in the 70s from Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
Well,
But then again, if you do the whole because Trask is played by Bill Duke in these movies, is he not?
And then
he's in the background. Yeah.
He's played by Bill Duke in 3, and then
he's suddenly Peter Dinklage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
I didn't even catch Boulevard Trask was in this movie.
He's not in this one. I think he's in Last Stand.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. Like, for example, Beast is in this movie on the TV.
And he's talking to Sebastian Shaw.
Yeah.
Is he really? I didn't
wait, that's Sebastian Shaw. Wait, what?
I mean, he was talking to a Dr. Shaw or a Mr. Shaw. So it's either...
Yeah, it's Dr. Shaw.
It's either going to be Sebastian or Shinobi.
That would be really confusing considering Sebastian should have a big giant quarter-size hole in his head.
Exactly. He should no longer be existing.
Kevin Bacon's just sitting there across from Kelsey Grammer in giant blue makeup.
Yeah.
How you doing there, Sebastian? He's just drooling.
Maybe that's why it's Shinobi Shaw. Mr. Shinobi Shaw.
I would buy that. So rolling right down the list, right next on IMDb, is Alan Cumming as Kurt Wagner, aka Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
The best interpretation of Nightcrawler out of all the movies we've seen him in.
I mean, okay, I'm not gonna go I'm not gonna go at you for that, but I'll just say this: he hasn't really had a chance to be anything in these movies. I would say that Azazel was more of an actual character, even than what Cody Schmidt McPhee has actually had an opportunity to be.
I will say this: that his appearances beyond this film, he is not a character and he is a function.
Yeah. He's there because he has that ability.
Yeah. And he I don't think they knew what the fuck to do with him in Apocalypse, and then was he in? Well, he's gonna be in Dark Phoenix, so I guess those are his two canonical appearances outside of this, right?
Yeah. I would say the character design is probably the best thing in these first two movies, especially considering the other character who's all blue. I think the hand feet look not good, but I feel like that's more of time. But the scarring stuff, I think is amazing. His look, the teeth, the eyes, the tail looks good.
Yeah.
I think that design holds up incredibly well over the last 16 years.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Oh no, and I think they kind of also just kept, because I think there's just something about Nightcrawler that's he's deformed, but he's also just there's just a certain amount of how do I say this hotness to him. They kept that.
There's a hideous beauty going on to him.
Yeah, and it was because it was Nightcrawler's not a character I've was a super huge fan of growing up, but I'm listening to Jay and Miles explain the X-Men, and it was just how much women love Nightcrawler, and I thought that was, and rewatching X-2 now, I'm oh, they still kept a lot of that shit in.
Yeah, unless you have a foot fetish, Yeah.
I mean, even if you don't, whatever. I will say they made him very pretty, which is I guess works. And even I guess if you look on the page, you're I don't know, blue skin, weird fucked up hands and feet, but I don't know, he has nice fucking hair and he seems to have his own sense of style. So
it's the Beast thing, the Beauty and the Beast thing, where it's oh, he's a beast man, but he's also kind of I could kind of see myself with him.
Okay, we're learning a lot about you right now.
I do remember in the X-Men Evolution cartoon, they even kind of made him, because was it him and Kitty, or and then one of the characters had like a thing, and they definitely like made him like not. He was definitely like a cutesy character.
He had like his own like romantic interest. It was like she like I think she was just like a normal girl. And like she ends up like seeing him without his power dampener, and she's like, oh, like yeah, like I don't mind. You're like a really cool guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that wraps up Nightcrawler. So now this one was in the first movie, but it has been recast and buffed up as far as role goes. Am I correct in that one?
Yes.
And I'm talking about Aaron Stanford as John Allardyce, aka Pyro, aka channeling a little bit of Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, aka Douchey McDouchebag.
Yeah, aka Edgelord.
Yeah, he's totally.
All of these things are true. Yeah, I mean, I'll be fair to him and say if he had been in those Star Wars films, I think I would have liked them more. So that's a compliment that I can give him.
I still can't believe that at some point Anakin Skywalker was almost played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and I still to this day wonder what would have happened in those movies if that was the case.
I'm imagining Leonardo DiCaprio say, "I hate sand." I'm just imagining that, and
I mean, I don't know if it would have been that different.
Yeah, I don't think anyone could have seen those movies.
Yeah, I don't know if any performance could elevate that material, because even Christensen said, like, Lucas just kept picking, like, the worst takes. I don't understand it. Like, we had better ones. He just kept picking those.
Right. And DiCaprio has the ability to be very flat sometimes, and George would have gone straight for the flattest, most non-anything takes. He would have
gone for the flat jugular.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're not talking about Hayden Christensen or Anakin Skywalker. I mean, fucking his power is cool, but I don't really have a whole lot of like decent things to say about Pyro, because like everything you just said is pretty true. He comes off like a bratty edgelord the whole time.
Yeah,
and then he comes off. I'm jumping ahead. He comes off in the third movie like more of a bratty edgelord, but that's another thing.
I think his. Go ahead. Yeah,
I was gonna say the biggest thing that's weird for me is I don't know why, but in the comics he's Australian, and I don't get why they didn't do that. It would have made his character a little bit more interesting.
Yeah,
because that would require them to go to Australia and hire an Australian actor.
Yeah,
right.
What if they just got the guy who played Kano?
Who?
The guy who played Kano. What if it was just him?
being a 19-year-old?
Yeah.
Well, I think Stanford was like 30 when he played this role.
I thought Pyro was like cool for the scenes that he like shows up in, but and this might be like going into a conversation with Iceman and Rogue, but I felt like the cast was like kind of so big and they were juggling like a little bit too much to where like I kind of forgot like Rogue and Iceman were there at times.
Yeah,
and
that's a problem
with Pyro.
Yeah, it's the thing from the first movie that I kind of pointed out, but it continues here where Rogue doesn't have much to do.
I think it's because of her power set. Like in this, she has no powers, but I touch you and make you hurt.
Well, Rogue, don't be touching.
And they try to give them more stuff.
But her whole thing is like she can touch people and take their powers, and there's always like really cool things that they do with that in the comics. Like if she like touches Angel, she like steals his wings. Like they never, but like because it's a 2002 movie, they don't.
Right.
They have to like kind of pick and choose where they use all their CGI power for.
Yeah. You don't even get Iceman in ice form except for like 2 seconds in the third one.
Yeah.
So like that's how lacking of they're trying to do CGI.
I think Rogue used her powers like once, and that was the whole like stopping Pyro from blowing cars up after the cheesiest line delivery.
I would say, jumping ahead to Last Stand, I kind of like the fact that they kept the ice form away from us because they make it seem really overpowered.
He's supposed to be Omega
Pyro,
level.
and he just walks up and headbutts him. He's like, "Yeah, I'm not hurt by any of this."
Yeah, well, Iceman's supposed to be like
The Last Stand. I don't like it, but I don't hate it.
Yeah, because Iceman's supposed to be basically unkillable. I think in like he's like top tier was Omega level, like Phoenix level, where he just can, as long as one shard of ice survives, he can create himself back.
Yeah, his whole thing is that he manipulates it on like a molecular level, so it's like he's basically God.
Yeah, he's like living ice.
He's like T-1000, where if you blow him apart, he can just reform.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I didn't know that about him because I'm not honestly of all the stuff we've covered as far as movies and comics go. Like I think X-Men is one of the things I'm more rusty on because the movies kind of beat me up to the point where I was like, I don't think I care anymore.
Yeah, I think they are almost designed to do that. I feel like, especially these first two. Like, and I'll be honest, I like this movie for the most part, but what I kept bouncing up against is how cheap this movie feels, and not in a good way. Like there's so many moments where it feels like it feels like they opted for using like a filter in order to get things like in order to like portray a moment instead of like building an effect or anything or doing something interesting visually. They just used an After Effects filter to get the job done because they needed to get the movie finished or whatever.
Well, I still maintain that, like,
I
nothing.
kind of want to go off that, but you go ahead, Connor.
Nothing looks worse, in my opinion, than like when people are starting to feel good about CGI in the early 2000s. They're like, "Yeah, we can use it for everything."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you guys see that opening shot of Wolverine going down the Alkali Lake and the very obvious green screen?
Oh yeah, I was saying they would have had so much more money if they would have just not made Mystique change 50,000 times for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was completely unnecessary in several scenes.
I think, am I the only one in the group that actually like really liked this movie?
I would say we all liked this movie.
Yeah, I think unanimously. Let's just say, like, right now, is it safe to say that everyone likes this movie, generally speaking?
Generally speaking, yes.
Okay, yeah. I think we all agree on that.
Because
we all like this movie. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, but like I was just like, because I mean, like, I don't get the feeling the CGI in this movie was like that wasn't like my first like kind of takeaway. Like I think as the movie was kind of going on with like the first big fight or the first big thing with like Nightcrawler and then like the big fight in the mansion with Wolverine and the hospital and the guys, I was like, man, it's like really nice where like the action's pulled back. There's a lot of wire work. Like I can kind of tell what's happening in all these fight scenes.
Oh, I will have
that worked.
And I was like, man, like I remember when action movies kind of used to be like this.
No, I will absolutely agree. I agree. The action scenes in this movie are fantastic. It's just there's also parts in the middle, not so much.
Yeah,
there are moments.
I remember the mansion siege the most from this movie.
Yeah,
where I went back and revisited it. Because that was the first time I think as a viewer, you got to sit there and go, I'm about to watch the live action Wolverine and go fucking apeshit on a bunch of people.
That shot where he's jumping off the balcony with his like claws out, I remember that shot so much growing up.
But I'm gonna move on to someone else in this movie that is making their on-screen debut, and I think we all might have a similar feeling on this because I think she's fucking wasted. And that is Kelly Hu as Yuriko Oyama, aka Lady Deathstrike.
She barely in this.
She didn't need to be here. I noticed that while I was watching this. Like, why do you keep on taking Wolverine villains and wasting them? Like, completely wasting them. Like, I don't get it.
Because they killed Sabretooth, they killed Toad.
But Sabretooth kind of makes sense to have in the first one because he's such a big name. Like, Lady Deathstrike is like C-tier X-Men villain.
Yeah, but I'm specific like on Wolverine though. Like,
she's specifically a Wolverine villain, but yeah, she's like not a name.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense to me to like take these characters and kind of just like throw them away and give them nothing.
You take these characters who have like, even if it's a small lineage, they have a lineage, and you make them silent machines.
Yeah, use them like henchmen in this bigger movie where, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lady Deathstrike has like a history with Logan.
Yeah,
I remember that from the cartoons.
Yeah, they used to be a couple.
Yes, that's what I thought. It was driving me nuts. I was like, they know each other and they're not speaking to each other at all.
Yeah, and it's really bothersome.
Well, I don't even understand how does she even work in this movie because, all right, so they use the droppy thing to like make them obey, but then why is she in this building? Like, how long does that thing last? Because like, why continue like menial work on her own in this office? Like, I was just like, why? That's one of the things, like, with the pacing, like, this is an over 2-hour film. Like, the pacing in this at times is just so tedious. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, we didn't really need a henchman, really. Like, it could have just been Stryker turning random X-Men into his temporary henchmen. That would have been, I think, more interesting.
Like, I thought Scott Summers would have had, like, a bigger role to play, like, since he was put under the mind control.
Oh, yeah, Scott's like a nobody in that movie.
He's a nobody in all the movie.
I mean, I was actually surprised by how much he had to do in the last one. He has nothing to do in this one. He gets one scene, and he gets, fucking... Yeah, he gets jobbed out.
Yeah, so I'm going to move on to some of the people who are featured as they're well-known mutants who get minimal to no screen time. Katie Stewart is listed as Shadowcat.
I think this is a recast from the last movie too.
Kia Wong is Jubilation Lee, aka Jubilee.
There's like 5 Jubilees in all.
Yeah, there's.
I know.
I think there's 17 Jubilees actually. That's the.
Also got where is he? Daniel Cudmore as Piotr Rasputin, Colossus.
And there's like
every line that Colossus had in this movie. I just saw the Deadpool version saying it.
Yeah.
And there's also like three Colossuses.
Yes, there are.
We mentioned Dr. Hank McCoy's on TV. He's played by Steve Bacic. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And I don't see Stryker's son listed here, but he could be under a name I'm not familiar with.
Oh, I have it actually.
Jason Stryker.
I think Stryker's son was played by
Michael Reed McKay.
Yeah, it's Jason 143. Is like
Robert Kelly showed up for like a hot second.
Yeah.
Which
and I was going to say, yes, he did. Jason 143, Michael Reed McKay, is arguably the more important of the bunch I just listed because he is integral to the back half of the movie. And he's also the reason that Xavier gets what happens to him. He gets Professor X again.
Yep.
Yeah.
He gets fucking incapacitated.
Yep. I think that comes down to another problem I have with every Bryan Singer X-Men movie is they're kind of all the same movie over and over again.
Every time he does an X-Men movie, Xavier has to get if he's in his chair, at some point he will slump over and someone will kidnap him.
Right.
Well, it's because
he gets taken captive at least 3 times. I can count off the top of my head.
Kidnapped.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can think that too.
They can't help themselves.
I mean,
like man, we gotta get that incredible power.
It's only like one of the most powerful mutants in existence. Yet it
all seems like the X-Men themselves are like, oh no, they got Xavier.
Right.
Oh, thank God he's gone. Everyone party.
Right.
You have 2 psychics on your team. You can't you have to get rid of one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess.
Like they have Cerebro. Like even if they lose one psychic, wouldn't they be able to find the other one?
Exactly.
So that basically wraps up for all the new characters and other returning characters. Pretty much there. No one, aside from some villains, everyone came back. So we had Patrick Stewart, Hugh Jackman, Ian McKellen, Halle Berry, Fang Jensen, James Marsden, Anna Paquin, Rebecca Mann. I think that's pretty much
Keep going.
Ashmore.
Davidson returning as Senator Kelly.
Yeah, obviously.
Which I think he's kind of an unsung hero in these movies because I love both characters, how he plays them.
Yeah,
I think he does a great job.
Yeah.
He's
really strong.
You know what was odd and timing wise? He didn't do a good job in Titanic 2, which is what we watched for movie.
Oh no!
And he is comatose in that fucking movie. Like,
who is this?
Bruce Davison.
Ooh.
I mean, wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
I would literally fall asleep on camera.
He's very, very, very blatantly whenever he's talking to someone, he's never looking someone in the face or the eyes. He's always looking off screen.
Yeah,
so you're
looking at the check
you're reading a fucking teleprompter, aren't you? Also, found out that those movies, you've all heard of Asylum Pictures, right? You know who they are.
I know them.
Yeah. Okay. So their star and writer and producer all the time is Shane Van Dyke. We found out that he is the actual grandson of Dick Van Dyke, and this is what he's doing with his career and lineage.
What?
Yeah.
I bet family dinners have to be super awkward about that. Son, how you doing? Well, Grandpa, I'm making these really bad movies.
I made a movie called Transmorphers.
I would say that you're right, except for, have you ever seen his son?
No, I haven't.
So Dick Van Dyke did a show. I can't remember what it's called. It was a hospital show. He was a doctor with his son. Yes, and his son is the cop. And oh my god, yeah. So I can see this. They
tell me is that talent doesn't run in the DNA.
No.
Oh man,
Dick Van Dyke is 93. He can still dance and tap, dance and sing.
Yeah, he can still do everything. Meanwhile, his spawn are a bunch of talentless hacks.
Well, I was watching, and it's randomly off topic, but Grant Gustin was on one of the talk shows, and they're like, "You look like Dick Van Dyke," and he's like, "Oh, I get that all the time." And I've met him, and they're like, "Oh, if they're ever going to do a biopic, everyone says I should play him."
I don't see that, but maybe I'm not looking for it. So
he's that tall, gangly look that if you look at young, really young Dick Van Dyke from Dick Van Dyke Show, there's definitely similarities.
Okay, that's interesting.
Also, he, every time he walks in a room, he trips over that fucking
the time stream.
I was gonna say the wherever you put your feet on.
Oh, an ottoman.
The ottoman.
Yeah, the ottoman's also the time stream because goddamn it, Barry.
Well, I could believe that Barry Allen would trip over a fucking ottoman whilst trying to save the day because he keeps forgetting about the speedster.
Yeah.
Oh no, Ralph! I'm sorry. I'm letting you get assimilated by the thinker because I forgot that I have superpowers.
Okay, it just turned Ralph into a god that we don't acknowledge.
Ralph Dibny is the most powerful person in the CW-verse. Anyway, plot of this movie is mostly Wolverine's origin story.
Half the time.
Half the time. And also that Stryker is going to use his freakishly powered son to incapacitate Xavier and use Cerebro to. He's going to kill every mutant, right? I watched this last week, so I'm a little fuzzy on it. It was
He wants the genocide mutants.
Also, don't forget the very important subplot of Bobby's sexual frustration.
That too. But basically, if Xavier, if he focuses on any group in particular, he can kill all of them.
This movie has the that's Chekhov's gun when Logan is when Wolverine is in the thing, he's like, oh, why can't you concentrate to find Nightcrawler? It's like, if I want to kill him, I can do that. It's like, oh, that's obviously coming back hard and heavy.
Yeah.
Also, Sean Asmore, or Iceman and Rogue have zero sexual tension in that movie.
They can't touch. The most Mormon relationship.
He's being a creepo and just looking behind him while she's getting dragged.
If they can't touch, you would think that see in Legion they did this perfectly because you can kind of tell that David and Sid are going to explode if they don't touch each other.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically David. David is frothing at the fucking mouth for Sid all the time. But these two are kind of I like you. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, and it's really weird because even if, you don't even have to have a lot of knowledge of Anna Paquin post this movie. If you watched even an episode of True Blood where one of her co-stars is her real life husband, they have so much chemistry. They clearly really, really like each other. So yeah, it's a little bit these two want nothing to do with each other.
Maybe this is controversial. Does this have to do with the director? Maybe not understing how to get chemistry out of.
He had chemistry. It just wasn't chemistry with Rogue. I felt Rogue was the third wheel in that trio.
I would 100% agree with that.
John is really keying into something.
I also appreciate the dick measuring contest he had with Wolverine.
Oh my god, that was fantastic.
There's also better chemistry than he had, and it's also a relationship Singer with Mike and has been in.
It's interesting. A lot of the best relationships in this movie are between two men.
Yeah, and the Magneto and the Xavier relationship is so good.
Yeah, and him and Pyro even.
I really thought you were about to go. And the Xavier Magneto relationship is so gay, and I was going to agree with you.
I mean, it is.
It
really is.
And I also really like Magneto and Mystique as just being these
high
two
school Bean Girls moment. Oh my god, that drove me nuts. I hated that so much. I was like, why are you turning Magneto, the leader of the Brotherhood of Mutants, into what's her name from Mean Girls? And oh my god, Fetch. What is this thing? I don't get it.
Oh my god, Fetch.
I think it's funny, but I don't know if it really works with the character that they kind of.
It works for Ian McKellen, maybe not so much Magneto.
Yeah.
Well,
he pulls it off.
Well, Ian McKellen is a sassy bitch, so
yes, that's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting.
Excuse me, I have chicken in my teeth. Continue.
No, but at the same time, I like the line where he's like, "Charles has much more confidence in you than I do," or whatever, or something like that. Yeah. I thought all the zingers between him and Wolverine, perfect. He opens up a roast just for Logan, and he just keeps on doing it.
I do appreciate his line to Pyro where he's like, "You are a god amongst execs. Never let anyone tell you different." That's a great
that scene that's the actor's best moment, I think, in this whole movie. I think that's why as a kid I remember, because after I just have memories of coming out of this movie and being very excited for the third one.
Same.
Yeah.
And it's that scenes like that with that kid that really.
I literally put in my notes. I literally put, 10-year-old me was really excited for this ending. 26-year-old me is not excited.
Well, only because you know where it went.
Yeah, there's so much setup in the first movie, and half of the plot in this movie is set up for the third one for Phoenix.
Is this also the movie where Magneto grabs Wolverine in the train and kind of?
No, that's the first one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I very much conflate these, and it's been a long fucking week. I apologize. That's why I'm mostly just here to direct traffic.
It's fine.
Okay, so that's plot. We were talking about the action a little bit. John, you actually were talking about the action, how it's refreshing, and I actually like this movie among the first three movies, action-wise, the most, because, as you said, I think the White House sequence Nightcrawler is one of the best in the series.
It is
a great opening, top tier.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very well done. I think some of the other stuff is I don't want to say it's boring, but there's not a story being told in the action. I guess that's a problem I have with some of the later stuff.
That and I will say like the Wolverine thing is cool, but now that we've been spoiled because we got a bit of it in Apocalypse, like you finally saw Wolverine go nuts on people, and you're like, oh my god, blood! People stab them.
I mean, I'd even go so far as to say in Origins when he first comes out of that tank, it's pretty well done for that movie.
Not as crazy, but Logan was like,
well, yeah. And then when Logan finally happens, the first thing you see is him cut off somebody's arm, and the shotgun goes off on the ground, and then he just starts butchering people.
I think the action in Logan is bloody. I don't think it's particularly good.
Oh no, I don't think it's supposed to be great. It's supposed to be grisly. I think is what's supposed to be.
Yeah,
I think we got spoiled later on by seeing what Logan can actually do to someone when the filter of PG-13 is not there.
Yeah, I was actually
sure, but I think it's like if you compare it to like other contemporary rated R action films, it's like it's not as interesting as Dredd, it's not as good as The Raid, it's not as fun as John Wick. It's just kind of standard superhero fight. Yeah, that just happens to have a lot of blood.
Yeah, and like I would say,
I personally disagree, but that's just me.
A lot of the hand-to-hand stuff in Mad Max Fury Road is when you catch a glimpse of it. Oh my god, it's fucking disgusting. But it's also really fascinating because what was that one shot where he I believe it's when the one dude on the cat pole gets the explosive crossbow to the chest.
Yeah.
And you don't really see a lot of it, but you're like, oh, that guy just flew away and his ribs were flapping in the wind. Like,
yeah.
I did notice watching the second one. Did Wolverine actually kill anyone in the first movie? Is the only confirmed?
No, I don't think he did. I think
he's like Leonardo. He just does spin kicks.
Did he not kill Sabretooth in that movie?
Survived that. Like, we never see Toad and Sabretooth kind of post this. But I would say Toad is most likely 100% dead.
They both got Mace Windude.
Yeah.
You take a bunch of lightning and go, ah!
Toad was in Days of Future Past.
Just floating around space dead.
Yeah.
Well, Toad was in Days of Future Past. I don't know if it's the same Toad.
It's the same Toad, but I'm just saying, like, it is funny how like they brought back Toad for Days of Future Past.
Well, they did a lot. Like they would bring back mutants, or they would introduce mutants, or reintroduce mutants that we've seen before, and they would drastically change their appearance, or their backstories. Like we talked about Shaw before, and Beast. I mean, Mystique's entire timeline has changed for the Days of Future Past retcons.
Yep.
We talked about Draft. I'm pretty sure First Class had some inconsistencies, or at least some contradictions. But then again, like the timeline of these movies is fucked.
Also anything with First Class, they were fully sold on the idea of starting over. They used the German concentration camp stuff as like an emotional saying, like that happened and that never changes. That scene never changes, and we're starting from the same point, but we're in a different universe. That was sort of the point of that.
The most effective character in that thing is Mystique, which I can spend 20 minutes talking about Mystique in these three films. Yeah. I don't understand the voice thing at all.
Yeah, I don't really.
Like, why? Yeah. And then her changing. Why does she constantly change into a naked form? That's not really naked.
That's always going to bother me. Like, you can wear clothing.
I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish.
I was gonna so when we talked about the first one, I feel like there was pushback when I said they did it because she's naked and because people want to see her naked. I'm sorry, but I have to like double down on that now. Yeah. Like, I think people wanted to see her naked no matter what. They were willing to put up with scales and blue stuff.
I will back that up, and I will say, and this is I'm going to put myself in the shoes of like a fucking Hollywood executive. You don't cast Rebecca Romijn to cover her in clothing. Like, you're casting her because you're like, yeah, we can cover that woman in blue paint and call it a fucking day.
But they do so many close-up shots of her face that I'm like, this looks so bad.
That's because they probably wanted their cake and wanted to eat it too. So they have naked Rebecca Romijn, but you're like, you probably can't show her from the chest up without someone going.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just so like looking at her and Nightcrawler, I feel like that's what made it so much worse. Is like Nightcrawler is like the face paint and like everything looks great, and it's like when it cuts to her, it's like, what? Who do they have different teams?
This is kind of off topic, but like when Jean Grey is on screen, like can anyone else not stop thinking about Black Widow?
Oh, with the haircut?
Yeah,
I can see that. The leather and all that.
No, my first memory of her is GoldenEye, so that's anytime I see her, I just think of Xena on the top, and then I have
you think of her choking dudes with her legs,
and then I'm like, ooh.
Actually, now that you mentioned appearances, like there wasn't a drastic change in costumes from 1 to 2, but
No.
like, what do we think of everyone's look this time around?
Fine.
It's still black leather.
The color accents are brighter this time around. I
they
mean,
have like power where you can actually notice.
Yeah,
I also think
feel like they should have been thicker.
I think also because we get an entire action sequence towards the end of the, like the entire climax takes place in a snowy environment, so they tend to pop out more.
And it's well lit also. It's
His helmet looks different too. Like it looks a little more like sleeker.
Yeah, you can see the red in his coat, which I thought was a nice touch.
Yeah, I had weird feelings with his costume because the helmet looks better in this one, I would say, because it almost has points. Like it does,
yeah.
But like, I like Nightcrawler's
But it bothers me when people are like, "That's a goofy looking helmet." Really, that's a goofy looking helmet. This is clearly the halfway point that somebody fought to get to, and this is the goofy looking helmet. Really,
hey, that was a goofy looking helmet. I got a Shaquille O'Neal comic book movie to show you.
and it's I don't know, things like that joke really bother me because it's like if it was actually the comic book accurate costume, I would actually be okay with because it's self-deprecating at that point. If it's the costume from the end of First Class where he's in bright red and he's got the bird on the top of his fucking helmet or whatever, that's one thing. But it's not. It's a very subdued look.
Well, he looks like he's wearing curtains. Like
yes.
It is. It's like drapery. Like he looks like Mon Mothra. Like it's something.
Around bed sheets.
Does Mother know you weareth her drapes?
Yeah.
Shakespeare in the Park.
This might be a spoiler for like all the other X-Men movies.
You're
like,
fine. You're okay.
As much as I like some of these X-Men movies, like I think they all look bad. Like the costumes all look bad in all the movies. Except for Magneto in like these movies. Like I think he looks cool. I think it fits him. I think Assassin's Creed Magneto. I think he looks bad in most of the movies.
I like the First Class costume.
Yeah, the First Class costumes work.
I think the First Class costumes work because you have like one, the blue and yellow pops out a little more, so it looks a little better, and two, like I don't know, it just seems like there's a sense of consistency. And everyone looks like they belong on the same team. Like this, I don't know, everyone looks so like it. Yes, it's consistent, but also at the same time, like you all could be strangers who all just have who are all bikers or something. Like it doesn't look
Wild Hunt 2 Mutant Edition.
I mean, I almost wish that they were bikers. Like I wish they went all in and they were like, the X-Men are bikers now.
That's why they what's up, yeehaw, let's ride.
But I actually agree with Seiler in that, like, I don't think in any particular movie there's more than a few costumes or looks that look fantastic.
Yeah.
I think they leaned out of the comic book in the costumes.
It's like even Origin, which is
I felt like Bryan Singer was going for a more tactical look of the costume.
Well, and Bryan Singer has like gone on record saying in the past that he does not care for the comic book costumes. He thinks that they're dumb.
Yeah. He said that. Lauren Schuler Donner said that it didn't make sense if you're fighting crime. Which, sure, whatever.
We should talk about that quote for a second because, like, the idea of the X-Men as crime fighters.
Yeah. That's the other thing. It's like, I don't know about that.
I've never seen them as, like, they're not the Avengers. Like, you don't call them when, like, we have a global threat. Call the X-Men. Like, no, I see them more as, like, I don't know, maybe freedom.
I think that's the deal with Dark Phoenix, though. That's what's exactly going to happen. Is that I literally remember one of the trailers being like, "This is the X-Men. We're on our way," and the government's like, "Okay."
I think it's also like funny when anytime like a filmmaker is like, "Oh, well, it's just not realistic to the world that we're building." I'm like, "You mean realistic to the world where the guy's got like knives coming out of his hands?"
Yeah, that world. yeah, the one where he has bone claws, right? That one.
Where there's like two blue people.
Really? Yeah, we have two blue people. One can teleport and one can shapeshift, and this guy's got glasses that shoot lasers. Like,
actually, you know what? I take back
with my contacts in, just all stormy stuff.
I take back what I said earlier. Like, I think costumes in Deadpool 1 is very good.
Yeah,
the Deadpool costumes are amazing.
I agree because there's a happy middle ground between like comic accurate and movie practical that they found because like Colossus was like, oh, that's a suit you wear in a fight.
That also pretty almost like if I recall correctly, he's like pretty comic accurate.
Yeah, it's very close. Yeah, I think Negasonic Warhead is probably the best. I would say.
He's wearing the yellow and blue.
Like I didn't like what they did with the Juggernaut, but the Juggernaut looked very good in that movie.
Yeah,
like putting him in a fucking like a prison jumpsuit, but keeping the helmet, I thought was badass. Also, and like changing the color tone of his armor was an interesting choice because then he doesn't he doesn't look like a giant tomato, I suppose is the word I would use.
Yeah, like a giant symbol.
But we talked about the action. Oh, now we were talking about music before. And I feel like everyone has some thoughts on that.
I'm gonna
are we talking about the? Are we talking about like
the score?
Okay.
I have a thought right now. Yeah, quickly.
Knock it out of the park, John.
I will say this: the main theme in this movie, is better than the '90s theme.
Well,
I mean, they're doing the same thing.
Like dangerous man.
Yeah, I don't know. It was interesting.
The animated series, John?
Yeah, the animated series.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah, no.
I don't remember any of the music from the movie, and I watched it like an hour ago.
Honestly, I'm in the same boat as Seiler. Like, I don't remember any of it.
Really? You don't? That's interesting.
I am also in the boat with these guys. Like, I remember the theme of like dun, 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 dun. That's
right.
it.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
That is all I remember from this.
Well, the rest of the music is very background. It's very, very background.
Yeah.
I would actually say that the score in the first one was better, but this theme isn't there, and that's something that I found interesting. Is I remember this theme as being in all of the X-Men, but it's really like introduced here heavily.
It's only in like the Bryan Singer ones that's out after one. Like it's only in this.
Yeah.
Days of Future Past and Apocalypse.
I would say because First Class had a score of its own, because I remember First Class's score distinctly when Magneto lifts a submarine, and Forge comes to life.
Yeah, and there's music in Wolverine Origins. There's certainly songs in that film.
Yes. Yeah. But Logan, I think, has some of the coolest music in the series, because
Logan and the Wolverine are both.
Yeah, Logan is like, let's just hit on shit and strum some dingy guitars. Like,
yeah, Beltrami is a genius.
I think that's one of the things that this series really missed on compared to like every other like comic book franchise. Like, it has no like big theme. Like, everybody knows Superman, the Batman.
I've been arguing between the costumes, the music, and like the overall tone and the attitude of these movies is that like they leave very little for people to remember them by.
Yeah.
Also, the score to this entire movie is forgettable. The one theme is the one that does stand out to me. It's the one that always gets me pumped up every time. Like, I know the '90s theme is great, but it's the one that gets me hyped up every time. Is that X-Men 2 theme?
Yeah. And also, this is the other thing. When we were talking about the first one, this was like the next movie after Blade, and it was really like there was nothing else really to compare it to, because nobody was comparing this to Tim Burton's Batman. I don't.
Now speaking of good soundtrack, Blade.
Right. Yes. Actually, I really like some of the Blade stuff, but yeah. At this point, Spider-Man 1 is okay. At this point, Spider-Man has come out, and the Danny Elfman theme, which is great, exists, and yeah. I don't know. Like,
I'm still not a fan of Danny Elfman's Spider-Man work.
Okay, well, you're wrong, but okay.
Right, okay, what a piece we have here.
I'm still going to say it. I still think Danny Elfman was much better as a frontman of a band than he is as a composer for movies. So
okay, I don't care. He's done some of the best scores ever all time.
I mean, he did the Simpsons theme. That's like,
yeah.
No. I'm not saying. Let me clarify that, because it's a blanket statement. Like, yes, Simpsons, Batman, Beetlejuice, stuff like that. But I don't give a fuck about his Spider-Man work. I don't give a shit about his later Tim Burton work, and his work on Justice League
no one cares about Tim Burton's later work.
Yeah, exactly. And like,
Justice League was a mistake.
The problem, I think,
certainly doesn't
anchored himself to Tim Burton for so fucking long that a lot of his work is affected by it. And his work in Justice League should get him like 2 years penalty for making music for anything, because that was the laziest, most like lackadaisical. Like, I'm literally gonna fall on my own themes to get this bullshit done.
I mean,
at point, he just flat out rips off the theme from the Flash TV show. Like, it's criminal what he did for Justice.
Considering the movie that we're discussing,
but considering the rest of the film is a giant turd, then I don't suppose there's too much to take away from that. But still, like, I don't. Like, here's another thing. I don't care for John Williams that much outside of a few major things, because I feel like all of John Williams' work outside of his major themes kind of sounds the same.
Well, it does. It's because
that's all composers, though. They revisit their stuff. It's just
even my favorites, Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL, will fall back on old habits. But like, if you could play like a song from the middle of Jurassic Park and a song from like the middle of one of the old Star Wars movies, I might be like, I'm not sure which is which.
But I don't know. I feel like
that Superman theme.
Right there.
Yeah, you hear that Superman theme, you hear Batman, like his theme, like I don't know, it's just like something that I was like, man, like all these other movies, like everybody's been running all the Marvel MCU stuff, so I'm like, man, anytime they play that Avengers like theme, I'm just like, oh, hype.
Yeah,
and there's just none of that.
For a long time, I was in the boat of like the MCU has no good music, and then I sat through Winter Soldier, and like for some reason I didn't remember the first Avenger theme that much, and then when Winter Soldier wrapped up and I listened to the soundtrack, I'm like, holy fuck, this theme is like really fucking good.
Coincidentally, same guy who did First Class.
I mean,
yeah. Well, Alan Silvestri did First Class.
No, Henry Jackman did.
Henry Jackman. That Avengers theme has become very much like that is fanfare to me. I'm like, okay, yeah, you got me.
My favorite take on it is the take that plays on the battle during Endgame. I'm not going to spoil it in case you haven't seen it yet. I know the ban is lifted, but the iteration of the theme that plays when like everyone in Portals. That's it. Oh, that's my favorite version.
Yeah, and I think with the X-Men movies, like there's none of that because you're never introduced to a theme that then builds on itself and then becomes somewhat iconic. Like it's just absent. There's no escalating sound. There's no special sound in this movie.
One of the things is because
special, like, and we go back to the looks. None of these movies even have special appearances.
No.
Yeah.
Well, one of the
I think my point was even if as long as you're not a crazy person, the Spider-Man theme did exist at this point, and people associated it with the movie strongly. You heard that theme and you knew it was the Spider-Man theme.
I could agree with that. I just don't really like it. It's just me. Like I'm not even saying that. Like what I'm saying is like I'm not saying it's the objective truth. I know my opinion is weird.
I'm like listening into it right now because like I do not remember the theme at all. But I also have not seen like any of the Spider-Man movies in so long.
Okay.
I also don't really like
I will say, going back before, I don't know if we're moving on soon, but I will say that I find it weird that the editor of this movie is also the composer.
Right.
Yeah, it's a weird thing that I've noticed.
Academy Award-winning editor.
Yes.
John Seiler, I will say I went back and revisited Raimi's Spider-Man 1, I think like a year, like basically right around the Spider-Man game came out, and the first Spider-Man is one of the funniest films I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, that's not to say like
but it's so funny.
I think like every Spider-Man movie has a bit pieces of it that are pretty good. A lot of it I'm not like a huge fan of. Like I don't like what's his name as Spider-Man. I think he's kind of bad and he doesn't fit.
Oh, he's flat as fuck in those movies.
I think his romance is really bad. I think the villains are the most interesting things in those movies.
Oh, easily.
Like it wasn't until Homecoming where I'm like, oh, like I like most of this movie, and then Into the Spider-Verse I'm like, oh, this is the perfect superhero movie.
Yeah. Into the Spider-Verse is kind of the best of like every bit of every Spider-Man movie that came before. But no, I agree with you. Like, and I was watching Raimi's Spider-Man, and like some of those things that I'm supposed to maybe not laugh at, I was cackling my ass off at. But not in the way that I was doing, but not in the sense that I was mocking the film. I'm like, this is entertaining as shit.
That actually reminds me of. I think that's one of my problems.
Misery.
With Raimi, I'm never sure what you're supposed to laugh at, though. Ever. Like, with Raimi, I'm not sure what's actually supposed to be a joke and what's not.
Oh, well, like James Franco eating pie is supposed to be hilarious.
Okay.
Well, no, that's supposed to be hilarious, yes.
That is still, like, me and Hunter are, like, still bothered by this, like, on an existential level, because to this day, we don't understand the motivation behind putting that scene in that movie.
Oh, because Raimi didn't give a fuck, and he was trying to burn down the house.
Where does he go? Like, what the fuck happened? Like, he's like, pie is so good. And then he sees Peter, and a car passes, and he ninja vanishes away.
Yes, Jason.
But anyway, actually, I think this is a good point to jump off into like how this movie has been affected by time, and I think we're actually kind of on the nose with talking about like how Spider-Man has evolved into kind of like these very amusing, entertaining, sarcastic movies, and the X-Men movies are like sterile in comparison.
I think
they're super serious.
Wait, hold on. One at a time. Tyler, go ahead.
I think the worst thing that probably has affected this movie due time is the involvement of Bryan Singer.
That's obvious. Yeah.
And I think it's like his involvement, unfortunately, like as me as a viewer, kind of taints me like wanting to go back and rewatch these, even though like watching this now, like I think X-2 is still like my favorite X-Men movie. I think it's like to this day, I think it's still like if I were to do like a top, maybe not top 10, but it's definitely in my top 20 like favorite superhero movies or comic book adaptations. But, you know, there's like some stuff about it that like has not aged well because like early 2000 superhero stuff, which is like kind of like what it is. But I think the thing that makes it age the most or the worst is Bryan Singer's involvement.
Yeah, and like I think you weren't here last to ask this question too, but like as an example, like have you on your own accord, like, sought out a Chris Benoit match in the last, like, 10 years?
No.
Okay, exactly.
No, I watched the Chris Jericho Benoit ladder match, but like that's about it. Like,
yeah,
that's the only one I'm like, I kind of want to rewatch it, but like after that, I was like, you know what, like I don't want to.
And that's probably because like there's like, as a Chris Jericho fan, I can see someone doing that. And as someone who likes superhero films or even likes the X-Men, I can see people going back and revisiting these and going like, yeah, like director aside, like I'm getting some joy out of this, but it is. No, I agree. It is hard to go back and return to work with something so nasty attached.
And I have this like, I have this thing I usually tell like most people, like when someone does something problematic or says some stupid shit online, and I'm like, yeah, like I'm probably not gonna watch see their stuff anymore. And people are like, well, I mean, like you just gotta separate the art from the artist. And I'm like, look, there's too much media in this world that you can't watch all of it.
Yeah. So, I actually went through anyone hear of the I know some of us have heard of him, but there was a YouTuber named Pogo who had put together some of like the best music I'd ever heard just from he was a video DJ, so he would put together music from audio clips and sound bites and speech from movies, films, television, and he was fucking amazing at it. And then I found out that his his old YouTube name was Fagatron, and that he thinks gays are an abomination. And I was like, wow, that makes it really hard to go back and visit your body of work.
Yeah. And again, there's just like too much stuff out there. So it's like, like I don't really feel compelled to go like read Frank Miller stuff. I do not feel compelled to read Ethan Van Sciver stuff. Like, and me, like, there's so much good X-Men out there. Well, like, while I really like X-2, like, it's not the thing that I would like point someone to go watch first.
Yeah, especially now. I agree. Things like if you tell someone like, and they said, hey, I want to go watch like, what's a good X-Men movie to watch? Like, would we all say maybe First Class would come to mind first?
Yeah, I would say First Class.
No,
that's still Bryan Singers. Yeah, it's still Bryan Singers for me.
Here's the thing. I've said in the show, I love Days of Past. I haven't revisited in a long time, but I love that movie. And despite all of its glaring flaws, and like, I'm like, you didn't fix timeline, but you tried.
Yeah, like Days great, and then Apocalypse is just like the drizzling shit.
Yeah,
well, it's the biggest dump of a movie I've ever seen. It's just.
So like, go on what you're saying. Like,
I really enjoy these movies, like the later trilogy. Like as I watch like these first two, like what we're doing, like I find myself like I really want to watch First Class now. Like I really want to watch Days Past.
I think the Wolverine is 80% a really fun movie.
Yeah, I agree. But then when he fights giant robot Silver Samurai, I'm like, you didn't earn this cheese. Like
80% of that movie is pretty great.
Yeah. I've always forgiven him. The thing I've always had a problem with is Madame Hydra or whatever, or they can't call her that, but I've always thought she was the big problem in that movie, especially if you watch the
performance of that actress in that film is dreadful, because like every time she shows up, she's doing like her best Uma Thurman Poison Ivy impression. She's like, but hello, I'm poisonous. I'm like, I fucking get it.
And she's just a villain. Like, that's all her thing is. Like, I like being evil. Yeah. And that can be fun, but it's not that interesting when you have a bad actress playing.
She also just doesn't fit in that movie. Like, she's playing this character up to 11 when everyone's playing an 8.
Yeah, everyone's a very grounded and subdued performance, and in comes this actress who, again, she's doing a Joel Schumacher performance. Like, no one asked you to do that. Stop it.
Yeah. And when you watch the director's cut, it's even more jarring, because if you haven't seen that version, there's blood and there's guts, and it's there are crazy
fucking forklifts. But yeah, no, I 100% agree about that Wolverine assessment. But outside the Bryan Singer thing, like, does this feel like an early 2000s superhero movie? Like, I think
but I would. If somebody was like, I really want to watch early 2000s superhero movies, I don't know why somebody would say that, but if that's their intention, then I would not say don't watch it.
Some people just want to watch a superhero movie that's full of a bunch of new metal.
I mean, here's the thing. I would still say watch Spider-Man 1 or 2.
I remember the score of Daredevil more than I remember this movie.
I was going to say, so you're saying they should go watch Daredevil and or Elektra?
No, don't watch Daredevil or, well, we'll see when we get to Elektra eventually.
No, don't watch Elektra.
I think Daredevil's a lot of fun.
I would like to say,
it's bad. Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
It's very bad.
Well, I would say, like, it sucked, but it's got some stuff that you can very easily laugh at. Like
Colin
all of Colin Farrell's bits in that movie are just like, it's like, how much meth did you do before you did this one shot?
Enough to be very fun on screen. Yeah.
To get back to this movie, like with the aging, I think the thing that like took me out the most was the fighting style. Like I know you're talking about the wire work, but like in the action scenes they're great, but there's stuff when like they're like flinging, like when Wolverine's fighting and like throwing people with his claws, I'm like, how does that work? Like when
that bothers me too.
Hits him and he goes flying, I'm like, wait, what? Like how are they like?
It's kind of the opposite end of the Dark Knight spectrum as far as like action sequences that are just not fun to watch after a while, because it gets a little corny. Whereas in the Dark Knight, you're like, I don't like what you're doing because I can't really tell what's happening because you picked a fucking hideous fighting style for these movies. It's just lots of elbows by faces. Like, come on, come get me.
The thing was, like, Wolverine's fighting style is I just run and go with my claws. He doesn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. That's the entire thing. And it's like, you're telling me that these are like two of the most dangerous people on Earth just by the fact that they have these claws, and that's what Stryker does.
He's military. Why doesn't he fight like a soldier?
Exactly.
I put the GIF in the chat, but I love the moment in that Nightcrawler fight where he does Ryu's Hurricane Kick.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good moment. There's some good stuff with Nightcrawler is the MVP of this movie. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah. I will say though that are you going or should?
Oh, great job.
Okay. I will say the one thing I did think that holds up well is the scene in Bobby's house where he's essentially quote unquote coming out to his parents.
Yeah, that scene works.
It's hard because it drives the movie to a standstill, but it's also kind of the most X-Men-y thing in many ways.
Yeah,
like getting to the group of the women are. Which also that scene is the entire Drake family has been in Smallville, all four.
Yes, they have.
I
said that it was probable, and it wasn't.
Yes. Like, I need to talk about Smallville for 2 seconds.
You know how you to bring it
this
up
is
on
a fucking show that won't leave me the fuck alone.
It's a show that was on for 10 years, and you're shocked. It's
not even that. It's the fact that it bleeds into parts of my life I didn't think. Like, I can't remember what movie we were watching, but I think it was Bushwhacked, and somebody from that show was in Smallville. I'm like, you're gonna be fucking
okay. Again, it was on for 10 years. This is like being surprised somebody was on Star Trek. Like, yeah, that person was on Star Trek. What did you expect?
It won't go away. Just stop.
No, it won't go away. It will be there forever and ever.
If they decide to put Tom Welling into the Arrowverse, and if they're putting Arrowverse small references into Elseworlds crossover, I mean,
he's going to be in Crisis on Infinite Earth.
At this point, Smallville references in this Arrowverse might as well mean like that. It's almost like a show in of itself. Like you could just do a super kind of small references and get like 2 hours of footage.
Well, everyone from Smallville, like the main cast, except for the two main guys, have been in the show. Basically,
I know. But
I lost my train of thought. We were talking about how time has been to this movie.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
The one other thing, is when you were bringing up the funniest parts of Spider-Man, it's like I think that's one of the things that this movie like fails at really hard. Is their like funny scenes are so bad.
These movies, all
the jokes
that instinct joke was like,
oh god, that was bad. Like as a kid, I didn't think that was funny.
It was any of the Spider-Man movies and grab one of those most Raimi-esque sequences out of context, show somebody, and they might laugh because I go, "What the fuck was that?"
Because Raimi's good at comedic timing.
Yeah, I don't think you can do that with any of these first three X-Men movies because they're so serious.
The funniest stuff that holds up is it's all Erik. It's all Magneto. His jokes are on top.
Yeah, because he's a sassy bitch.
We love what you've done with your hair.
Exactly. Yes, so good. That's one of Anna Paquin's only good moments in this movie. Also, her reaction to that is very.
Yeah, she's like showing off gloves.
She's like, okay, motherfucker, I'm gonna fucking.
No rope, don't my earrings.
I did remember that. I think that the struck by lightning line in this movie is when Wolverine shows up and he's like, "Oh, your motorcycle's out of gas." Throws the keys over to Cyclops and he's like, "Fill it up."
Yeah.
It's so, like, I don't know who's douche here. Like, you're both douches.
Actually, before we move on, I kind of want to talk about the end of the movie quick because I think the end of the movie has a lot of cool stuff. And it has something I don't think many of us were ready for, or many people who were into X-Men comics at the time were ready for, which was one. Before we get to the big thing, my personal favorite moment for this movie was when Stryker is chained to the dam and Logan's playing with the kid in his hands, and he's like, "You'll never be anything but an animal, and that's how everyone will always see you."
I also love when he says, what does he call the kid? He's like, "You with that creature?"
Yeah, you with that creature.
I'll take my chances with it. I just have one note on the whole what holds up thing, and then we can go to what I think you were trying to segue into.
Yeah,
and it kind of goes to my earlier point, which is we've seen movies now where they spend multiple films building up characters and like getting you to care about them. I'm not even just talking about the MCU. I'd even go so far as to say the DC, where they really give you a sense of who these people are and why they might come into conflict before they ever even do come to conflict. And there's not really a sense of that in this movie. There's not really a sense of, outside of sort of the major players, why these people don't like each other. Until the plot tells us that they're not supposed to like each other.
They don't like each other because they're the bad guys.
But I will say, like, I think with the Stryker thing, I think that's actually kind of, it flies in the face of that because I think the performance is so good. Granted, you don't spend much time with Stryker outside of this movie and then when he comes back in later films, but like, he is so immediately detestable. And when you finally put the context of what he does to Logan, it's really inhumane and awful. And it really makes him seem like just a slimy piece of shit.
I think it's more about like the Brotherhood, quote unquote, because there's like two people, and the X-Men. It's like, all right, they kind of don't do the best job of explaining the differences.
And how they're different from each other. That's I mean, that kind of goes with the plot, and it's like, well, why is the president willing to allow this to happen? Because the X-Men and the Brotherhood aren't that different. Like as far as he knows, they're the same thing.
That brings me to a thing. Were they implying that the president's a mutant?
No, I don't think so.
When they say, when they're going through the thing of like kill all the or find all the humans, he's not collapsing in pain. He's just chilling in his chair. It's something that from my originally watched it's something from when I originally watched it, I was like, oh, is that what they are implying?
I didn't notice that.
I think they come back around to this in a different way when we get Days of Futures Past, and it's when Magneto is basically saying, like, I didn't kill JFK, I was trying to save him because he's one of us. Like, maybe that's a more fleshed out version of this idea.
Because they definitely
changed though in like the third movie.
I don't know.
I don't know if it's the president though. The only other thing before we leave, like the aging wise, I wanted to bring up was the romance in this movie, quote unquote, is really uncomfortable.
That's really bad.
That is the Jean Grey one is. I actually think the Mystique one is like, I don't even know what the hell is going on. Like, why is this happening?
Yeah, wait for X3 when they just shoot in Wolverine's Storm for some reason.
Well, that's why looking at Halle Berry's like the other big face on it besides Hugh Jackman. I'm like, she has like 12 lines in the movie.
I mean, I'd make the argument with maybe two exceptions. I don't really think romance in superhero movies has gotten much better though.
Unless it's going to be fucking dynamite, I don't think you need it.
And until they really know how to do it right, they maybe shouldn't. And
like the ones that work are ones that where like Ant-Man and Wasp, I think, works because they work well together. Like, or when they already have a family together. Like Pepper Potts and Tony work because that built over time. And then like Hawkeye and his family works because you meet them and you're like, oh, look at this fucking beautiful, lovable bunch of charming people.
What do you think of the Black Widow Bruce thing then?
I mean, that doesn't work. That doesn't work really at all. I mean, aside from everything you've mentioned, Hunter, the only one that I think really, really works, and this is obvious because it's me, it's Peggy and Steve. The rest of them really don't work for me.
With Peggy and Steve, they held them apart for so long that it built to an actual fever pitch where you're like, just give them the fucking dance.
And those two have a lot of chemistry also.
I think the problem with Nat and Bruce is that like Whedon built that with stuff like, let's jump over this bar and you fell into my boobs again. Like,
well, it's not just that. That movie came right after Winter Soldier, in like the actual Earth timeline. Winter Soldier, it doesn't set up a romantic relationship, but it sets up a closeness between Nat and Steve, which of course continued to develop, but it wasn't clear where that would go. And I think that was part of the discomfort there. A lot of people.
Because they've known each other because Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson have known each other forever. So,
but I mean, like, that's why I really like about about like those Avengers movies is that, you know, Black Widow and Steve Rogers are not romantic at all. Like they are just very good friends. You know, they're like best bro. You know,
well,
the romance that doesn't work in Winter Soldier is Steve and Agent 13.
Yes,
which is why they basically ignore
it. That's more Civil War, but yes, I agree. Like it doesn't when they kiss, it's not earned. Like the best part of that scene is
Sam in the fucking
yeah, Bucky and Falcon, and them just like nodding.
And it feels weird once you take in accounts from other movies specifically.
Yeah, I think she's her niece though, or something.
Also, that character has vanished from the fucking MCU. Like she's gone.
she was snapped. She was snapped before the snap.
Yeah,
the problem
apparently.
Is the character that's very connected to Steve in the comics, like heavily, and then they just didn't know what to do with her. They're like, "Oh, we got to put her in," and either they didn't.
Yeah, the fact that he learns that they're related during the funeral is like, what? How did that happen?
And like, I think it sucked because I think her moment at the end of when she pulls a gun on Rumlow is awesome.
Yeah.
There's a whole room full of terrified people, and she's like, "No, fuck you," and she draws on him first.
Yeah, it's great.
But the romance in these movies is always so fucking ham-fisted. And then, like, by the next movie, when we have, like, Wolverine, and as he's going to stab Jean, he's like, "No, Jean, I love you!" I'm just like, get it over with.
I've never been, like, a believer of Jean and Wolverine. Like, I just, I don't like it.
You've never been a fan of Wolverine?
Not even in the comics, not even in the cartoons.
Yeah. I mean, you know who I thought had chemistry in this movie? Rebecca Romijn and Hugh Jackman. They actually kind of seem to like each other in this film.
Yeah.
So, well, but they also like the character mystique, or because they don't really have like tons of scenes. It's like because she comes in as and then she transforms into Halle Berry and herself, and then
I think he's more interesting with her in that one scene than he is with anybody else. And I would even argue that it extends to Rebecca Romijn because they're both doing like not an impression, but they're both like copying her mannerisms and like doing sort of moving the way that Mystique moves, kind of. So yeah.
Also, like just to go back on like the Wolverine Cyclops Jean Grey thing, like it always, I think, in any medium feels like it makes Wolverine look douchey. It makes Peter look unfaithful and makes Scott look like a fucking weasel because he just like he does barely anything to fight against this trespasser to his relationship, and Jean's like and like flirts with him and like stroke chest.
This is going to be a weird analogy, but I kind of just popped in my head that this is kind of similar to Twilight, and Twilight actually does that three-way relationship way better because he's basically the Jacob, wolf boy, and it's like in those movies, and I've had to watch them. Jacob's is basically treated as this like clinger honor. It's like, dude, why are you here? You have nothing to go away.
If you've seen the later movies, you know why he's there.
Oh, God.
That baby, Manzuka said.
We're talking about romances. I don't believe in the Rogue Bobby Iceman romance at all.
No, it doesn't work.
No,
he has more chemistry with
even the Kitty Pryde development that comes in the third movie, which I'm jumping ahead here, but
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I think that goes back to Singer. It's like all the better kind of chemistry is weirdly between all the male characters. Like I like the kind of shittiness between Cyclops and Wolverine. I kind of feel more of their stuff at the end.
You two just fuck already.
Yeah. It would be better though. Go ahead, John.
The only love triangle I think is like good in X-Men was Cyclops, Jean, and Emma.
In the comic.
Yeah, well, that's compelling because like it makes Cyclops' moral compass seem like really fucking weird. Then you add the fact that like Jean dies and then Cyclops makes out with Emma on top of her tombstone. You're like,
what a great guy.
It's so scummy that it kind of it elicits an emotional reaction out of you, so it kind of makes it interesting.
Yeah,
but,
I feel like the reason why like they have like the love triangle between Logan, Scott, and Jean is just because it's a thing for Cyclops to do because even like in the animated series, it's like they had like no idea what to do with Scott, and they're like, well, let's just have him have like some kind of like bro douchebag like thing with Wolverine.
Well, that's the problem when Wolverine is the main character and he's not the leader of the team. It's like he needs to have a romantic something, and the only character really, it's either Storm or Jean Grey, and he's had like not really much with Storm in the comics.
Yeah, well, and
Wolverine kind of hooked up with everybody.
But I think we can move on to the final segment. I didn't pull up a quote like we did last time, but maybe someone else did. If we didn't, we can just speculate.
Yeah, we can just speculate this time.
So last time we closed it out with a suggestion from Arlen of like, what did Feige learn from being involved in this production as well as many others? Last time we did this, it was basically like, what was the quote we pulled? It was, you can't make magic happen. Either it does or it doesn't, and you can't force it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like his thing was patience key, which means that to me, like, if that's his experience from not just the first one, maybe the first three, like, I kind of wonder what was going on with Fox at the time and these movies.
Well, we kind of know. So Spider-Man happened, as I said, and we didn't really do what did Kevin Feige learn for Daredevil because I hadn't come up with the idea yet. But we can kind of sort of go with that. And the problem with Daredevil a lot of the time is that movie's clearly trying to copy Spider-Man. Like, it's very clearly like, oh, he's going to move like Spider-Man, and some of his powers are going to be kind of Spider-Man-ish because Spider-Man's big and he's red and people will be confused.
Also the cuts, like the theatrical cut, is like Fox stepping in and be like, no, we need more romance.
Yes, exactly.
But what if we also made him like Batman?
Right. That's
he's got fucking rare and he chews painkillers without water.
Yeah. And I think that you can sort of take that lesson kind of into this movie a little bit, which is, I feel like there's a bit of trend chasing going on with Fox. And I think Feige being in a prime place where he can see that, I think he learned, don't chase the trends, make the trend, be the one forwarding things. And it's important to point out, 2003, it's a year from the Ang Lee Hulk movie. Which he would have been working on at this time. Yeah, I think Fantastic Four would have been in like pre-production, probably maybe production. I don't know how long that would
be. 05. Fantastic Four 05. Hulk was June 03.
Man, I gotta say, I can't wait to see that movie for the first time because I've never seen it, and I know we're watching it for the show. But like, the Incredible Hulk.
No,
Hulk.
Yeah. Oh, Ang Lee Hulk is pretty miserable.
It is
very Japanese.
It shouldn't be a Hulk movie. That's the problem with it.
Ang Lee decided, I'm gonna make his comic book movie that's also an existential crisis movie or some kind of thing like that.
I think he also, whenever I look at like images, I'm like, why is he so green?
Well, he changes sizes also, which is
the one thing I say, bless Nick Nolte in that entire movie. Just bless that man.
I think he's the best part about that movie.
He's the only good part about that whole movie.
Yeah, that's him. Just okay, that's another episode that we aren't doing right now. But don't chase the trend.
I would say also, when it comes to your villains, hire talent, because getting Bryan Cox in there very much reminds me of getting Robert Redford, getting these big name actors.
Yeah, I think you might have learned big talent can make up for, like I said, not really being able to establish these characters, not being able to build them up over time. Big talent can fill that hole. But I mean, that's the thing. What Kevin Feige learned doesn't necessarily need to be all good things. I think that they might have taken that too much to heart. Of, well, we can just give them nothing to do, and they'll fill in the gaps themselves. We can give Christopher Eccleston tons of makeup and these lines, and he'll put it together, right?
Will carry the character, but like, there's no character there.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing you might have learned was, like, I'm thinking like with the end of the movie being some kind of cliffhanger of some kind.
Yes, I think that's something he learned. And again, with the whole building of relationships thing, the entire time I was watching Scott and Wolverine towards the end of this movie, I was thinking this would work better if I thought that they were not even friends, but like if it seemed like they had a good working relationship with one another, like that there was something more than I don't like you because you're flirting with my girlfriend. If there was something even a little bit deeper there,
because like that moment in a vacuum is pretty heavy. Because like Scott like basically collapses in Logan's arms, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Wolverine's just like, she's gone.
He's a complete,
and it's very much not earned.
Yeah, and but I think it's acted fucking fantastically because
it is.
Scott is like, I will blast this fucking door down and go jump in that river, and Logan's like, no, she is gone. Like, that's a death sentence.
Yeah, but when they turn to Nightcrawler, it's like, go get her, and he's like, she's not letting me.
Yeah.
Like,
that's right.
And then,
I mean, and that leads to another lesson, I think, which is go all in, which is something that I've heard Marcus McFeely talk about with an Endgame, how they don't like save things for movies. They don't like come up with an idea and then save it for later down the line. If they have an idea and it's good, they just do it. They don't wait to do it and spend too much time. If they think that it's a good idea to bring in Zemo, they bring in Zemo. They don't wait around. They don't wait around and just like use Hydra for 15 movies. They use Hydra twice, kind of 3 times in Civil, if you're including that one guy from Civil War, and then Hydra's in the TV show, and that's about it.
I think probably see Spider-Man act same way because they didn't plan for Spider-Man. Spider-Man happened.
Yeah, and they went all in very quickly. He has the full-on suit. They didn't wait for him. They didn't go to Uncle Ben and all that stuff. They just did it.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Well, they did do Uncle Ben.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Are you referring to Endgame, John?
Yes.
Fine. Yeah, just say yes or no. Okay.
Yeah.
I will. I accept that because it wasn't the first time we saw Spider-Man. Like his introduction wasn't like, "Oh no, loved one, great power, responsibility, shake fist."
Yeah. Because we're getting to that. Because we're getting it Far From Home.
That's fine. I mean, it's been a little while. I'm okay now.
Yeah, and using a character that we have 10 years of association with and giving that plot to that character. And putting it on Spider-Man, that's fine. I think that's actually really
that's better than having a new Uncle Ben show up every 7 years to get shot in the sidewalk. Like
exactly.
with Robertson and Martin Sheen.
Especially because it's not like Brooklyn is, or was it Queens? Isn't even that bad. Like
Far From Home.
I would love if you zoom out and Tilda Swinton is there with the time stone.
I was gonna joke that it's like he comes back from a trip from overseas at Far From Home, and he sees like Aunt May, and she's like, "Oh Ben, oh Peter, would you like to meet Ben? He's your new Uncle Ben."
Your new Uncle Ben?
Yes.
I'm still waiting for like Tobey Maguire.
What is Uncle Ben like? What is Ben like a fucking dog? He's got a new one every few years. Like I got a new dog.
There's a new model.
It's the 4th one. Come on.
The snap brought back Uncle Ben.
Peter's like, May, you do this every decade, and it's getting really creepy.
I found a nice guy named Ben, okay?
I really like the name, okay? I know he's old this time, okay? But it's gonna work, I swear.
Like a 70-year-old man, like, "Hi, Peter."
Then he shows up, he's like, "Hi, I'm your new neighbor. Meet my daughter, Gwen."
Oh my God.
No, we already did that story. Let's not, please.
What if
no.
what if he comes back and she's like, "Hey, like I'd like you to meet like my new boyfriend. His name's Ben Grimm."
God damn it.
Are you telling me you want to introduce Gwen? No, hold on, wait. Oh my God. What a sandwich is
now is it Ben Grimm in human form, or is he already
at the same time?
Now here's my question: is it Ben Grimm in human form, or is he already the Thing?
I would
see a shot with a magic rock bullet. Like
I think it'd be funnier if he was in human form, because that's how they're like, "Oh, they're planting the seeds." And that's how we introduce them.
He gets like someone throws a rock at him and he falls over. He's like, "Great power comes."
No, you know what they have in Korg's gonna come and be like, "Hey, you a rock monster?" Throw the rock at him.
Anyway, on that note, let's wrap and get the hell out of this review because next week we got
garbage.
Oh man,
The Last Stand.
I know Erik wants to be on that one really badly because he said like this movie broke him. And just as a preview, like when I first saw Last Stand, I was younger and not as enthusiastic about like kind of picking these movies apart. So I think I left the theater going like, I think I like that, but I also think I was just recovering the fact that I'm like, they killed Xavier, they killed Cyclops, they killed Jean. Like,
well, if you count killing Cyclops,
I remember being in the theater watching it and just being angry, like being very mad because I was like super into X-Men, and they would just have like characters I liked who would just be like, "Oh, multiple man's in this movie. Oh, he's a nobody."
Yeah.
Connor, I think I was at your boat where I was like, I didn't know any better, and I was so dumbfounded by the fact that they like killed off 3 main characters. So I was like,
yeah, like, and I was also that was a time where I wasn't reading comics anymore, and so I was like, oh, cool, this looks fun, and then went into it. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. I do remember when like Cyclops died off screen. screen. I was like, no, he'll come back.
Yeah,
And I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and then the funerals happened. I'm like, fuck you. Like,
if you thought that Cyclops had nothing to do in this movie, just wait for the next week.
Yeah,
actually the most hilarious part is that in the
he
first
wasn't
one,
even important enough to kill in front of you.
Yeah, because he was too busy going filming Superman Return.
the most problematic movie on earth.
Yeah.
John, your enthusiasm is so great.
Oh
yeah.
God.
I want to see John take apart Superman Returns. Just see what happens.
Oh my
Well,
God.
Superman Returns.
I feel so bad for Brandon.
I mean, in retrospect, it's not as bad as Man of Steel.
No, I don't know. They made Superman like an African dad.
I would say not as bad as BVS, but yeah.
I think between, this is not to lead to a discussion, but I think somewhere between Man of Steel and Superman Returns is a great Superman film. It's just that neither of them really achieved that.
It's like, do I want the Superman film where Superman is a deadbeat dad, or do I want the Superman movie where Superman's dad would want him to kill a bus full of kids?
Yeah. Which one do we really want?
No,
the answer is season 5 of Smallville, which came out at the same time.
It's a fucking revolver. It's a Russian roulette game with a revolver with 2 bullets. Like, I don't want to play this game.
Yes,
that movie where Superman destroys an entire.
Connor, I think I got this image in my head of just Kevin Costner going up to the tornado with 2 bullets and a gun, just playing Russian roulette with a tornado.
Go ahead, John Kent.
There's so much to compare in those movies because it's like, a movie where Superman destroys like a city and a town, and a movie where the villain is a rock island.
Yeah, one where the villain's plan is a real estate scheme, and the other one where a villain's plan is like, I'm going to make this planet my planet. Also, Superman destroyed everything. Anyway, let's get the fuck out of here. So I'm Connor McGraw. We took a week off from Movie Dumpster because we found ourselves once again somehow ahead of ourselves. We had a couple episodes to edit, but the next one is Asylum Pictures Titanic 2, which came out in 2010. And if you were hoping for something ridiculous, it's not. It's actually pretty middle of the road and takes itself way too fucking seriously. And they had a chance to do something like, I don't know, Cthulhu picked up his pinky and sank the Titanic, or like werewolves attacked it, or something, or
I want that movie now.
Like an iceberg with fists punched the boat in half. Nothing. None of that.
I would take the iceberg with this.
And you just pitched 5 better movies.
I know. What they do give you is inadvertently sell you on an apocalyptic scenario that they treat with with no seriousness whatsoever, because the boat is hit by a tidal wave carrying icebergs moving at 834 miles an hour. That's not a small disaster. That's the end of the East Coast. Like,
that's gonna be close to the speed
of an apocalyptic event. Also, icebergs going that fast wouldn't just put a hole in the ship; it would cut it like a cheese grater. But so that movie's coming out. It sucked, but we had a good time just dissecting it because it's preposterous, and it takes itself way too seriously, but doesn't have the budget or the talent to carry off what they're trying to do, and it comes off as hilariously inept.
It's every Asylum movie.
Oh yeah, and I'd never sat down and actually watched an Asylum Pictures movie until that one. I knew of them because I was like, oh, I know what the fuck you're doing. I've seen this kind of stuff before, but I sat and watched it. I'm like, oh, you didn't earn any of this.
Yeah, the thing about like Asylum films is it's like they out of their way go and try and make a purposely bad film, and people who make purposely bad films end up making films that are not enjoyable. Like,
thank you so fucking much for that statement.
Every scary movie.
The reason why I have never sat through Sharknado is the reason why I won't sit through any of that tripe, because I'm like, I see the strings. You're not fooling me. I'm not being sold by this.
Yeah, like that's why The Room is so good. It's kind of like why Jupiter Ascending is so good.
Yeah, because the room is lightning in a bottle, because The Room was made with sincerity, because Tommy Wiseau thought he was doing what he should do, and not making moves so as to please a specific section of the crowd. Like,
he was trying to please his Russian funders.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the charm, is that I don't know if Tommy Wiseau is either a sincere, inept filmmaker or the most successful con man who's ever stepped behind a camera.
Yeah.
I will say, going back to the Asylum, I do want to know if, like, knowing what I know tonight, if Dick Van Dyke actually sits down and watches the movies that his grandson writes.
And just sits there with a cigarette in his hand, just going like,
I can't believe I worked 70 years in Hollywood for this to happen.
This would happen to my family.
They're completely undoing everything I've worked for.
Calls his grandson up like, what the fuck are you doing?
I love the idea of Dick Van Dyke just being furious that his grandson is dismantling his legacy with incompetence. But yeah, Bushwhacked is out. I kind of think we're going to do... Okay, so we might do the remake. We might do the original of the horror film Pulse coming up.
Ooh, I remember you talking about that.
I think we might do the Japanese version. I'm not sure. The problem with doing the remake is that the remake makes me so fucking mad that I probably couldn't do much for an episode except for tell everyone how much that movie sucks. And that's kind of like, it's not really what we're trying to do. So I think we might do the original Pulse because 18 years old now. And it's a horror film that it's one like I've never seen before because it's less of a horror film and more of an essay on like despair and loneliness and human misery.
They're Japanese horror.
Yes, yeah, but it's one. Yeah, like I saw Ju-on, I saw that one, a whole bunch of them together. Oh dear God.
That's the sun.
Oh God, Diagnosis Word. I remember this show.
That fucking chin. Anyway, but like Pulse is so oppressively lonely and interesting that I kind of really want to talk about it. So hopefully we get around to doing it sometime soon. But like other than that, I don't have a lot of future teasers. I think our next one is actually a movie called Brainiac. And yes,
Okay.
I said Brainiac, not Brainiac or Maniac. Joe picked it, of course. So I think that's the next one. But I think we've also got something working where we might do one or a few of the Crow sequels. And probably not City of Angels because City of Angels is kind of okay. But I've seen Wicked Prayer and it's got Edward Furlong, David Boreanaz, and Tara Reid, and it is a fucking piece of dog shit. And it's an assassination of everything that made The Crow interesting. So that's kind of the only teases I have going forward. Lots of uncertainty, but we'll figure it out as we go along. Also, MDU Mondays, which is the thing we're doing on our Instagram, where we're going to start fleshing out this weird in-joke that started with season 1 and kind of add some canon and lore to these ridiculous ideas that we've been fleshing out with jokes. And now they'll have more context. We got one up. It's Daniel Stern, so I hope you go check that out. Next Monday, the next one's going to be John Hurt, and I'm writing that one. And I'm going to stab him while he is our Thanos. So there's that. Who's next?
So by the time this is coming out, I believe me and Erik Sayor will have put out our Matrix revisit. I think that's what we're doing in honor of John Wick. So go listen to that. We're also going to be covering Game of Thrones the Friday of the week that this comes out. Talking about that finale, which I'm sure both of us will have thoughts on. I'm fairly positive we will. So yeah, go listen to that. I think I think we're doing the Godzilla episode very soon also by the time it comes out. So nice. Yeah. Oh, and me and Hunter, we're probably gonna do a King of Monsters review. So yeah.
It's going down. Don't follow me on social media anywhere. I mean it. Seriously, guys. Stop. Check out Monster Mash. Maybe there'll be an episode, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, depends on if we can actually record something. Yes. That's important.
Yes, kind of important. I got nothing else.
All right, I have 12 podcasts. John is on one of them. Both Johns are on them. Are one of them, which is And Now Comics. We are taking a week off because we're recording this. And so we talk about comics on that show. That's every Thursday on this stream. Every Tuesday, me and Alan do Smallville Chronicles that we've incepted into Connor's brain for forever. And we watch after we just finished season 3, and that's coming out, or it came out today, was Justice League 1997 pilot movie for CBS that never aired because it's a piece of dog shit, where it's Friends meets The Office meets superheroes, and Barry Allen in it is a Goomba who can't keep a job. And Martian Manhunter's fat. And then we have Legion of Tunes, which is on Los Haro, and I think we should be recording tomorrow our episode on Seiler, what is the name of it? It's the Van Gogh movie. Something Vincent?
Finding Vincent?
Finding Vincent, yes. All right, and that's it. That's all we got, or I got.
For some reason, all I could think of was the Danny DeVito movie, My Cousin Vinny. And I was like, it's not My Cousin Vincent.
Danny DeVito.
My Cousin Vincent.
That's Joe Pesci.
Same guy.
Oh my God. Joe Pesci will actually kill you.
I'm kind of just around on the Phantom Zone.
What an astounding plug.
I try.
I am present.
I am present, and I also I'm on Twitter, JamScott193. I don't have any podcasts of my own. I just kind of show up when these guys invite me, and I piggyback off success.
Well, we appreciate your honesty.
Yes.
Kidding.
You can find me on Twitter at John JOHN_FN_Seiler SEILER. I work for Faku.net. I'll be in Chicago this weekend for Anime Central. So if you're in the Chicago area, come see me there. Don't go to Faku.net unless you're over 18.
I was like, oh no.
And my Twitter account's pretty safe for work. I usually just tweet about wrestling or how everyone should go watch OKKO or basically whatever comics I'm reading.
Sweet.
That's everybody.
Yeah.
We did it!
Yay!
Oh no, you know what this means? We have to watch X3 next.
Well, at the very least, we can probably come up with a new sign-off then we'll debut right now, which is fuck X-Men 3.
Yeah, fuck X-Men 3.
Fuck X-Men
I'm
3.
the Juggernaut, bitch. Bye!
Oh my god, I can't believe that was in that fucking movie.
Yeah.
Fuck Van Dyke.
I can't believe that's the only thing that you know about X-Men.